Hi, everyone. I'm Shane Stevenson, Director of Museum Collections and Curator here at the not here, but at the Buffalo Naval Park. And today we've got a really nice conversation with Danielle and Jared from the HMCS Haida. Now, if you've checked out our video, it's gotten some pretty good views over the few weeks that it's been published. But now we're kind of going to go behind the scenes a little bit and talk to them directly about their experiences, more about HMCS Haida, and we have some nice question and answers going back and forth, and then of course your comments that Stephen will be monitoring. So I'd like to welcome back Stephen. He hasn't been around, especially for the Museumship Mafia, in a while. How's it going, Stephen?
Going well, thank you. It's
Good.
good to be back on our YouTube live show. It's
Yeah,
been like a year.
I believe it. It's great to have you. Are you a Miami Dolphins fan? No?
It's
Okay.
huge.
Okay.
And my second favorite team is the Jets.
Yes, okay. That was a good one. And welcome, Danielle. How are you?
Hey, you're doing great. I'm excited, to be able to chat with our viewers and talk about, our project and what we've been doing the last year.
Good. So why don't you tell us, Danielle, what your job title is and what you do for HMCS Haida?
Of course. I am currently acting as the Visitor Experience Team Lead for HMCS Haida National Historic Site. So that is in Hamilton, Ontario. So essentially, I supervise and oversee the staff that work at HMCS Haida. So it's been fun. I've been doing this now for almost a year in this acting role. And then previously, so I guess it's my third season currently right now at the site, and about a year now acting in my current position. And then, it's been really fun.
Great. Thank you. And we welcome Jared as well. Hey, Jared, why don't you give us some of your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was the acting interpretation coordinator throughout the majority of this video project that we worked through. I had the pleasure of doing that. My normal role is as a heritage presenter with HMCS Haida. So this year marked my fourth season with the site. It's been really nice to get to reach out to sort of a different ship community and learn a little bit about what others are doing out there. So it was really fun.
That's great. So why don't you both tell us about your season up there? When do you open? Are you open year round? Do you shut down in the fall, or when is that?
Yeah, so our season at HMCS Haida, we typically open to Victoria Day long weekend. So that is towards the end of May. And then that's for our regular season. And we usually stay open right up until our Labor Day weekend, which is beginning of September, so end of August, beginning of September. We do remain open weekends only in September. So this year we're going straight up to September 21st. Sometimes we do have special bookings or group bookings that we'll accept by the beginning of May or into September. But that is typically our normal operating season. And we're open Wednesday to Sunday. So we are closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, and usually between the hours of 10 to 5 p.m. So if you are interested in visiting our site, just make sure you get there before 4:30, because that's when we stop issuing tickets to get on board the ship. And it's been a pretty good season so far. It's been pretty busy. Lots of people around.
Oh, that's great. And then what do you both do in the, say, wintertime after you close?
So interestingly, myself, as well as Jared, so we actually work at another historical site as well. So our operating season at Haida, like I said, usually goes right up until usually end of September-ish, and then starting October, November, and December, we work out of Woodside National Historic Site. That is about an hour from Hamilton towards Kitchener-Waterloo. It is the childhood home, or one of the childhood homes, of William Lyon Mackenzie King, who is Canada's longest serving Prime Minister and the 10th Prime Minister of Canada. So we're kind of busy. So between both HMCS Haida as well as Woodside National Historic Site, we don't have a lot of downtime. And any time where we're not actually at physically at a site when it's open to visitors and public, we're just pretty much planning for the rest of the season, upcoming year, program planning, developing all of our events and what we're going to be doing.
Oh, that's great. Jared, do you have anything to add to that, or?
I think Danielle covered it very nicely. But yeah, we move sites in the fall, which is nice. You get to sort of mix up what you do throughout the year, give you a little bit of different perspective, and keep things going into the fall. But yeah, the season at Haida has been pretty good this year. It's some decent visitation. We introduced a bunch of new programming this season that we haven't done in years prior, and that's really brought people in. So it's been nice to see that.
Yeah, that's great. That's glad to hear. I know it's been a little hot and things like that for this season so far. It brings people out, and yes, nothing better than a nice hot day than to stand on a deck of a steel ship, right? That's fun. But yeah, there's a bunch of comments rolling in. Thanks. Hi, Wayne. Hi, Anna. So these are people that usually follow us, Matt and Teresa and Old Man Kenny G. So we'd just like to welcome you all. Am I missing anyone? Probably. Yeah, Eric, Teresa, Old Man Kenny G. Perfect. So thank you all for being here. And, please support the Haida. Visit their website. If you're able to make it to Hamilton, Ontario, it's maybe an hour and 20 minutes or so away from Buffalo and the Buffalo Naval Park. So we are going to hey, All American Travels, how are you? Thanks for being here. You're in Louisiana, so it might be a little difficult for you to get up here. But thank you for your support.
I'm going to jump in real quick. So Wayne said, I first saw HMCS Haida in the fall of 64, 65, just after she was saved from the razor blade factory. So when did she become a museum? I know she was in Toronto first, right? So when did she become a museum ship?
That is correct. So Haida served from 1943 right up until 1963 when it was decommissioned. Once it was decommissioned, a group of gentlemen, they formed what's called Haida Inc., and they pretty much saved the ship from going to the scrapyard. And when they pulled together their money, they saved the ship. It was then in Toronto, so at Ontario Place, where it was featured and opened up as a museum ship for people to go on board and visit, and stayed in Toronto right up until 2002. That's when HMCS Haida, when Parks Canada pretty much acquired the ship and then brought it over to Hamilton. And from 2004, it's been open to visitors in Hamilton. So we do get a lot of people, you hear it all the time, visitors come to visit HMCS Haida. They're, I haven't been here in such a long time, and I remember going when it was at Ontario Place in Toronto. But it has been a museum ship since 63. So it's been around for quite a while.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen, for that. He says he was born in Toronto. So yeah, Wayne's World of Science and Technology. I love that. I will have to visit your museum, Wayne, of your science and technology. That's awesome. Thank you. So talk about the genesis of this partnership and this collaboration. How did that begin? When did it begin? It seems a while ago, so I might not have a great memory of it. But Stephen, I think you were pretty instrumental in this as well. So what do you think?
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Stephen.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, please.
I was going to say, I guess I was trying to think about the timeline too. Everything kind of blends in after a while. So I think you were the first ones to reach out to us, if I remember correctly. And it seems like you had initially reached out a few years ago about trying to work together, do some kind of collaborative project, but then COVID hit, unfortunately. So then trying to build that connection again. So I'd say it was almost about a year ago where we first started conversations, and it really just started as like, hey, let's just get to kind of know each other. What can we do? How can we work together? And then thankfully there was a few of us, including Jared, who were able to go up to Buffalo Naval Park and sit down and just talk about just general, like, hey, what's a day in the life of, working at Buffalo Naval Park or working at HMCS Haida, and then started to think about ideas on ways that we could collaborate together and work on projects. And eventually this whole video project surfaced and came to light. That's kind of what I recall and what I remember. So just about, I guess, almost a year ago, I'd say. It was probably towards the end of summer, early fall, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I think you guys came right before Christmas, maybe. I remember being very cold.
It was cold.
Yeah.
We did, yeah. I believe we came at some point early December. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a very nice visit. I had never been to Haida. I don't think, Stephen, you had been to Haida. Your team hadn't really been here. And we're very close museum ships. Not only that, but I mean, obviously, we're cross borders. It's the obvious thing. But for museum ships of different navies, there's no better opportunity here than to collaborate. There's probably nowhere else in the country, I mean, unless there's one in Seattle and one in Vancouver, something like that, where you can have a British born and an American born museum ship so close together. And
not only are we the closest cross border, but you guys are the closest to us, like out of any museum ship.
Yeah, so it's important to do and to collaborate. And yeah, I think there was some talk about doing this right, and then COVID hit, and that relationship just kind of went away. And so we're so glad that we can build this up again. So I know we covered a little of this, but tell us a little bit more about the location of the Haida. And you've mentioned you're open Wednesdays to Sundays, then you gave the time. So where, in fact, are you located within Hamilton?
Jared, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. So we're down on what we call Pier 9, so sort of down in the sort of tail end of the industrial strip as you run through towards downtown Hamilton. So we're right in by Bayview Park, which is the big park that's in Hamilton, in an area that's starting to be built up. And we've got a nice little inlet that the ship is tucked into that provides a good shelter from the weather and such throughout the year that makes it nice for visitation.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, that was the really interesting thing when Stephen and I visited, is when you're on I believe it was starboard, right? Now you're looking out into the lake, and you do have that. You said maybe there's events on this long concrete pier that people can look at the ships. So it's interesting to get to, because you're right, you're in an industrial area. But once you're there, it really kind of opens up when you're on the ship, because you can look out along the horizon and the lake side horizon and things like that. It's great.
Well, something I'm not sure if I ever asked you guys, or if either one of us ever asked you guys this, but how many visitors from the United States do you see a lot when you guys are open?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. If I remember from our statistics from last year, I believe it was about 5% of our total visitation were visitors from the US, roughly. So I can't remember exactly what the total number was specifically, but I believe it's about 5%. So we've been seeing quite a few. Even this season, we're actually seeing a decent amount of visitors from the United States coming across and coming to Haida.
Quite nice.
Oh, good. Stephen, do you want to talk about our Canadian visitors, anything like that?
Well, I know running the encampment program, I get lots of Scouts Canada coming and staying overnight with our overnight encampment program. So we have Scouts sleep on the USS Little Rock, and after COVID, we struggled a little bit to like fill beds because Ontario is such a big part of it. I'd have to say it's probably the second biggest region, Southern Ontario, outside of Cleveland, for visitors that we get just to the encampment program, which probably more from Toronto and Mississauga and that area than we even get from Buffalo. So it's definitely nice because I guess they just reopened the border, about maybe 2 years ago now? It was closed for a while, right?
Because of COVID?
because of COVID. So you could cross, but you had to do like a bunch of stuff to get across and everything. But because I know we would go across, but you'd have to like fill out this app or whatever it was, and then people like coming over across the border. It seemed like it wasn't officially open until maybe.
Oh,
We lost. Oh, you're muted, Stephen. Okay, go ahead. Try now. You have to unmute.
Sorry, my headphone dropped out of my ear, and then it just pauses everything, and then nobody could hear anything.
All right, sorry about that. Go ahead.
So anyway, I guess like they officially reopened the border maybe 2 years ago, and we started to see an influx of people from Ontario coming to stay at the Naval Park, and it's great. It makes up a big part of our visitors and campers to that program specifically, which is great. A lot of Scouts Canada are very interested in what we do, and I love having Canadian. It's funny, we do like trivia and stuff, and a lot of the Canadians know American history better than some Americans do. So it's
where you're going with this. All right.
But yeah, it's great. It's really awesome to have that relationship with Scouts Canada.
Yeah, great. So for all of our viewers, we do have a PowerPoint slide that we're going to ask Danielle and Jared to I'll be clicking through the slides, and we'd like to hear more, supplementing of the video of some of the things that we're seeing in this PowerPoint from Haida specifically. So I will bring that up. Let's see. Okay, and then there's a few pictures. And so why don't we run through, and you could just tell me when you're ready to move on to the next slide. To supplement some of the things that we saw, or to add to some of the things we saw in a video. And we'll be talking, everyone, about doing a second video as we get through the stream here. So why don't you guys take it away and just tell me when to turn the slide.
Yeah. Jared, you want to go ahead?
Sure. We grabbed some photos of spaces on board that we had covered as part of our video. That way, if people had questions, wanted to know more about those spaces, we could cover them. So what you see right here is an example of one of the main armaments that's on board HMCS Haida. So this would be the 3-inch 50 gun that we have, which of course, there's one of those at your site. A photo of it from the back here. So it's one of those primary guns that the ship used during the Korean War. It was put on as part of the ship's major refit to get it ready for the Korean War, where they replaced one of the guns that was there prior. And it's an interesting example because all of the other weaponry that we have on board the ship was British or Canadian design in one fashion or another. And this, of course, is a U.S. design.
Oh, I like that. So where would this be in terms of, positions? Now, U.S. Navy's, say, turret 61, 62, 63, or, and during using the designation of the caliber. You guys use A, B, and C, I think it is, right? Britain and Haida and Canadian and probably Australians. So can you explain where this is on the Haida and what its designation would be called, if there is one?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use a letter designation, as you mentioned. So in the tribal class destroyers, their original setup, they had 4 main armament positions, a mount and B mount position at the front of the ship. And then they had a X mount and a Y mount position at the rear of the ship. When the ship was refit for the Korean War, the Y mount position was removed to make place for a new armament, but they left the X mount position, and that's what we're seeing here. So this is the rear main armament mount at the back of the ship, and it is designated in the same way, 3-inch being its caliber, and then the 50 being the caliber, but the length of the barrel. So I believe it's 150 inches from the bottom of the barrel at the end.
Yes, very good. Oh, thank you. Okay.
So this jumps us up to the front of the ship. So this is what we would call the A mount position. You can actually see the B mount position in this photo as well. Up towards the top right there, you can see the 2 barrels poking up from the upper deck. So this was a main armament that was on board the ship in the spot that it's in right now for the Korean War, but there was also one of these on board the ship in the X-mount position during the Second World War. It was their primary AA mount, and they liked it so much that when they refit the ships, they decided that the A mount and the B mount positions were going to be upgraded to this model of them. So we have 2 of them today.
So was there a standard, was this the standard anti-aircraft armament for all the tribals, or was there, when they were coming down the ways after being built, were there differences because of wartime modifications, or updates, things like that?
Yeah, so they do make some changes. So in the very original setup for the ships, the A, B, X, and Y mount guns were all 4.7-inch multi-purpose guns. Those were pretty decent at surface to surface shooting, not very good at surface to air. By the time the Royal Canadian Navy was looking to purchase tribal class destroyers en masse, a modification had been made to the blueprint in which the X gun had been replaced with a smaller 4-inch multi-purpose gun. Being a smaller gun, it took up less space inside the mounts that they were in, and they had the capacity to elevate to a higher angle, making them better for anti-aircraft purposes. And then it was so effective throughout the Second World War that became the primary armament for the Korean War. So they did make modifications like that throughout the ship's life. But for the most part, it was pretty standard across the tribal class destroyers. If something was built at a certain time, they all sort of had the same armaments on board them.
Yeah, thank you. That's cool. So this is A and B, X and Y. Got to get that into my head. Fabulous. So what are we looking at here, guys?
So this is the back of that gun there, of course. So we call them a mount, which for us in sort of the British Navy terms means that it has a gun shield on it, but the rear of the gun is open and ammunition is brought from the exterior of the gun, as opposed to a turret, which for us would be a fully enclosed unit where ammunition is brought up within the turret and then loaded from there.
Yeah, so our mounts are anything up to 5-inch caliber, and they're enclosed, right, as we talked about. And then, so that's surprising that this is considered a turret or
a mount.
A mount,
yeah.
But it's not enclosed like America's, right?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, I think this is the slide that sorry everybody, it got all wonky on me. So I actually have, when it uploaded to StreamYard, it turned every image sideways. So I have another image here that I will show, which is right. So please tell us what we're seeing here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought I'd take the opportunity because we talked a little bit about this during the video, and our maintenance team has been hard at work this season to refurbish and bring this space to life. So what we're looking at here are the different stages on the magazine system that feeds A mount and B mount on board. Specifically, this photo is for A guns magazine. So the photo on the left there is a photo of one of the ammunition racks down inside the magazine. You can see the shells in the rack there. The photo in the middle, what you're seeing there is the bottom of what we call an ammunition hoist on board. So it would have a little dial. You can see that circular screen piece that's right above the door on that mount towards the top middle of the photo. That would be set to a certain phrase that could be adjusted based on what was going on at the top of the ammunition hoist. They would switch a dial and it would change what word was displayed on that screen. And that would indicate to the crew down in the magazine what type of ammunition they needed to pull off the racks. And then they'd physically put them inside of that mount, which was hydraulically operated. And it would take that ammunition up to the top of it, which is 2 decks above the magazine. And that's the photo that you see on the right there. You can see a round is exiting out of the top of the mount there. On the right side of that ammunition hoist, you'll see there's a little black circle with a little handlebar that comes off the side of it. And that's the dial that they would use to set the screen at the bottom of the hoist. And this is what did the majority of the work for the crew on board in getting the ammunition from the magazine up to the gun. They would bring it up to one deck below the gun, and then the sailors would have to carry the rounds by hand from that hoist to a ramp that would allow them to slide the round by hand up to the deck above, where it would be grabbed by another sailor and then could be loaded into the mount to be fired.
Yeah. Let's see. Do we have a picture of... no, but this was... Now I'm back to the sideways ones. This was a really interesting thing that we saw, and this is... pardon me. This is in the mess deck, right? With the tile. And we were both really surprised that there were, like, for us, there is a little pass through for the gunpowder, but the projectiles go right up and right into the mount itself. But here, there's some manual labor attached to it.
Yep. There was no such thing as wasted space, of course, on a destroyer, so they cram everything into the spots that they can. Of course, British shipbuilding did have turrets at the time, enclosed units, but those were, for the most part, reserved for much larger caliber weaponry, and the added weight of those was sort of deemed unnecessary for the tribal class destroyers. The use of doing it by hand here sort of keeps the weight down on board the ships and helps them by shedding that weight off. It makes them as fast as they are.
Excellent. All right, let's remove that again. We'll add that back, and I think every image is right side up. So what's going on here?
So this is an example of a unique weapon system that we have on board the ship. So we call this a boffin. I'm not sure which ship this is off of, but it does look like it's on board one of the tribal class destroyers. And essentially what this was a sort of way to cut costs in a wartime economy. The tribal class destroyers, as their midship guns in the original setup, had 6 mounts that were twin 20 millimeter Oerlikon guns. And the Royal Canadian Navy found that this wasn't very good at punching through the side of modern aircraft. They wanted to move up to something a little bit larger. They wanted to go to the 40 millimeter guns, but they didn't want to spend sort of the money to go all out and buy guns and mounts. So they decided to take the Oerlikon guns off of the Oerlikon gun mounts, and they bought Beaufort guns, and they put Beaufort guns on the Oerlikon mounts. They decided to call that combination the boffin. The Royal Canadian Navy was the first, as I understand it, to sort of do this thing where they put a different gun on a different gun mount system. And it was quite popular. The Australian Navy and the British Navy picked it up as well and started doing the same things as a way to keep the costs down. You didn't need to replace the mount on the ship. You could just put a new gun on top of it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That was one of those things I thought, because we just say 40 millimeter Beauforts. And so I was like, boffin, what do you know, when we were mentioning it, it took me a while, but yes, you're just to save the costs, as you mentioned. So it's on a 20 millimeter mount, an Oerlikon mount, but it's a Beaufort, right? And yeah, you can see they're training here or something, or maybe that's under wartime conditions, probably training though, I guess. They're not wearing helmets or anything like that, but you can see the clips going into that's a single mount, right? It seems. Yeah. Very cool.
They removed the twin Oerlikons and then they've replaced them with single Beauforts.
Yes, cool.
So I think the weight of a twin Oerlikon and the weight of a Beaufort was roughly in the same ballpark, so it didn't change the setup of the mount all too much.
Right. I'd love to hear comments in the comments section about have you ever heard of boffins before? And, do you know of other ships that use that configuration? Maybe all the tribals did at some point. It's a wartime modification, and thank you. Yes, we are again talking with Danielle and Jared from the HMCS Haida, just a short drive from Buffalo, a short drive from Toronto at Hamilton, Ontario, and Pier 9. So please visit their social medias and their website. And if you're in the area, please go visit. It's a beautiful ship, and Stephen and I can attest to that. So go ahead. Yeah.
So that's an example of one of the ones that's on board today. That would be our forward starboard side boffin mount.
Nice.
You can see an example of that view that you get on board.
Yes, and that's what I was meaning, where that crane is. Aren't there events held at that where that crane is? Because you have that huge concrete pier kind of thing. Do you guys or
Yeah, I believe it's part of the city of Hamilton's building efforts in the area. They're building the area up. All along that pier side used to be industrial space, which is like it was just old warehouses and stuff, which has been torn down, and they're starting to sort of rebuild it and give it a little bit of new life.
Yeah, cool. Oh, yeah. Well, Steve and I were very impressed with your engine space. So I think we have 3 images here of the engine room. So I'll just kind of go through and show these while you're talking. So this was a major difference between our vessels, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we have 2 steam turbines on board, but on board our ship, both of them occupy the same engine room space. So what you're seeing here is sort of the landing space that you arrive in once you come down one of the 2 ladders that'll bring you down into the engine room compartment. There's sort of this landing platform. You can see the dials there that provide you with your manual control of rudder speed, direction, and things like that. And then across the opposite way, they have all the gauges that give them oil pressure, temperature, and all of those things, which you're seeing here. So that's the opposite side of that platform. And those 2 ladders that you're seeing come down are the ones that you would go up those, and that would take you up to the top deck, the main deck on board the ship.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Right.
Yeah.
So visitors, when you go there, they can visit the engine rooms?
Yep, absolutely.
And they climb up and down those ladders?
Yep. Some people like it better than others, but it's absolutely doable. And especially on a really hot day, the engine room being as much of it below water level as it is actually a quite nice sort of cool spot to be on a hot day.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, great. That's great. Yeah, it's usually hotter for us below decks on the Sullivans, but interesting. And if you go visit, you have is it a chief that is there who worked in an engine space, not on board Haida, but
yeah. Right? So we have the fortune of having a Friends of organization, the Friends of HMCS Haida, that are affiliated with our site. They have a large volunteer group that comes to the site. Many of them are vets of some variety of another, whether it was with the Navy or something else, and they come and lend their expertise. And one of those was actually one of the first female stokers in the Royal Canadian Navy. And she, when she's feeling up to it, is usually at our site on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, and is happy to talk any visitor's ear off and tell you absolutely every bit of that engine room, right down to every little knob and dial that they've got in there. Well beyond any understanding that I might have of that space.
Yeah, that's why it's so important, and that's so great that you have her as the first female stoker in the Navy, you said?
Yeah, the Royal Canadian Navy, yeah.
In the Royal Canadian Navy. I mean, talk about a gift to the visitors, right? That she could just be there interacting with individuals and visitors. That must really add to the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have. Sorry, we definitely have visitors that come looking for her specifically because they've had a chance to interact with her and talk with her previously, and yeah, she's a wealth of knowledge. She will go. Yeah, she knows so much, and she will go down first thing as she arrives on site, and she's not going to pop back out of that hatch until we close the ship. So she's down there for the day.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, thank you. So what are we looking at here, guys? I'll blow that up there.
Yeah. So this was, as I've mentioned a couple of times, the ship went through a big refit. So that was from 1949 until about 1951, about a 2-ish year refit period where at the end of the Second World War, the Royal Canadian Navy was kind of trying to figure out what they were going to do with the Tribe class ships. Were they going to keep using them? Were they going to retire them? And I think they were leaning towards retiring them. And then with the outbreak of the Korean War, the decision was, do we build new ships or do we refit the ships that we have? And the decision was made to refit the ones that they had. So they went through this big process of setting them up from destroyers and then turning them into destroyer escorts. So what you're seeing here is a photo of each. So on the top left there, we have a photo of HMCS Haida as G63, which was its pennant number during the Second World War. Then on the bottom right there, you're seeing HMCS Haida as DDE 215, which was its pennant number when it was recommissioned as a destroyer escort. And you can sort of see some of the differences in the structure there. The big ones that come to mind are, you'll notice that the foremasts on each of those photos there is different. On the World War II photo, it's a old school trimast, because they didn't have all of the brand new radar tech that they had by the Korean War. Whereas in the Korean War photo there, they've moved to a more modern lattice style mast to support the several radar dishes that are on it. And then, of course, the setup of the gun mounts on board are different. If you're looking at the World War II photo there, you'll see that there are 2 gun mount positions at the back of the ship. So it's got both its X mount and its Y mount position. And then forward of those, it has a slightly smaller gun mount position, which I don't believe had a mount designation, but it was a pom-pom anti-aircraft gun. So they were 2-pounder, 40-millimeter quad barrel guns, which were one of the deciding factors in the decision to move to 40 millimeter over 20 millimeters, that they were working a little bit better than the Oerlikons, and they decided to upgrade all the Oerlikons. So you can see there's a different number of guns on board as the ship sort of transferred from being a destroyer to a destroyer escort. They sort of changed what they were hoping to do with the tribal class. And that meant reducing the number of guns on board so that they could increase the amount of anti-submarine weaponry that they had. So they switched from depth charges that they were using during the Second World War to the more modern Squid mortar anti-submarine system, which you can't see in that Korean War photo, but it is at the very tail end of the ship where the Y mount would have been. They built a Squid handling room to bring the mortars up to the top deck, and then the launchers are at the very rear of the ship.
Awesome. And we'll be talking about those. Yeah, fabulous. So Matt says a beautiful classic steam engineering plant in the engine room. Yeah, if you ever are able to visit it, it's a wonder. It really is. It's well lit. It's clean. You know, you'll have the stoker down there to talk to you. That's great. And yeah, thank you. Lego History Sam is from Waterloo, Iowa, or I believe it's Waterloo. He might be from another town outside, but that's where the 5 Sullivan brothers are from. And Stephen and I met him when we went to Waterloo at the Grout Museum District and the Sullivan Brothers Iowa Veterans Museum. And he was just in Buffalo for reenactment that we had a couple of weeks ago. So he just didn't bring his passport. Well, you know, you'll get used to it. You always carry your passport when you live in a border city like Buffalo or Fort Erie or Hamilton. You always kind of have it with you. But let's see. Oh, good. Yeah. Let's talk about the mess deck here.
Yeah, so that's a photo of our main mess space on board. Of course, we were talking about the ammunition hoists earlier, and you can see 2 of them right here coming up into that main mess compartment.
And so you're saying from here, where do the projectiles go from here?
Yeah, so they go up one more deck. So in the center of the photo there, you'll see that there's sort of a circular space in between those 2 doorways. That is directly beneath a gun at the front of the ship. So in this room here and in the room just forward, if you went through those doors, there are 2 hatches in the ceiling in each of those rooms, which you can bring ammunition ramps down. That would be they would be attached to the ceiling with hooks, and they would come down. They would be clipped onto the openings of those hatches and then locked to the floor so that they'd stay in place while you put rounds on them and push them up to the deck above. And if you actually peek right through the door on the right side there, you'll see right in the middle of that door frame, sort of towards the left edge of it, there's an example of one of those ramps that you would put a round on. So they carry them from that hoist either into that forward room and put it on those ramps if they wanted the ammunition to come up onto the main deck just in front of the gun, or right behind the two hoists in this room. There were two hatches in the ceiling, and they could bring the ramps down off the ceiling in this room, hook them up, and that would take the ammo up into the shipwright shop above this space. And then from the shipwright shop, it would be passed through a bulkhead out to the gun.
Yeah, great. So that's what you're meaning through the right side door. It has a little blue
Plaque at the bottom
a little
of it.
blue rectangle, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. And now this is also where a lot of the crew birthed, right?
Yeah. So our crew is sort of divvied up. Of course, you have officers on board, and then the rest of your ratings. So for the 230-ish ratings that were on board the ship, they all lived in the forward half, and then the officers at the rear of the ship. The space that you see right here would hold about 50 to 60 sailors in it at any given time. They were divvied up amongst the mess tables. So each of those tables that you see in the room there are 6 of them, would have about 8 or 9 sailors assigned to it, and that would make up their mess. And then they slept, instead of in bunks, they slept in hammocks, which you can't see any. Well, actually, you can see one through the door frame into the forward room in the very back corner. But they would be hung off of the ceiling on the black bars that you can see right on the bulkhead at the top. They've got little divots in them, and that's where you would tie the end of your hammock onto one, and then you'd run it across the room over to another bar and tie it onto a divot in that, and then you would sleep in your hammocks.
Yeah, great. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Yeah, we're getting cool. All right, so here we go. We got some slides of this. So what's going on here, Jared?
So this is into the Squid handling room. So I mentioned the Squid anti-submarine mortars that we have on board. So that was sort of the successor to the Hedgehog system, which the tribal class destroyers were never equipped with. They went straight from depth charges to the Squid mortar system, even though the Squids were being used during the Second World War. It wasn't until that major refit that it went on to the tribal class destroyers. So when they added this weapon system to the tribal class destroyers, they wanted to do 2 things. One was improve the destroyer's capability of defending itself against submarines on its own, as opposed to the older system with depth charges, where they would have to do ASDIC sweeps, which would take a couple of ships, with one using its sonar to sort of ping a target, and then the others dropping depth charges on it in a sort of grid pattern, sweeping over top. And that took a lot of ships to get one job done, and not super efficiently. The Squid system is in a head throwing system, so it shoots up and over the ship, and it lobs these big, like 400-pound bombs up over the ship. And they're really heavy, of course, 400 pounds. So to get them up to the mortars, you're not going to be able to carry them by hand. So they put this massive lift system into the ship. So where Y mount was at the back of the ship, they take that mount off. They build a room above that space, and then they make a shaft that runs right down into the magazine that used to be for Y gun. And then they fill that with all the Squid mortars. They put a trolley sort of rail system in, so that the mortars can be rolled off the racks onto the trolley, slid over to the bottom of this hoist. They would be dumped into a rack, and then a motor sort of pulley winch system would pull that cart up to the top. The mortars would be slid off of the rack. They would roll either to the left or the right side here, with each side holding about 6 or 7 bombs on it. And then they could be slid forward when they got to the end of the rack, whether it was on the right or the left side here. They would slide forward onto a trolley cart, pass out through the bulkhead, and then they would be slid out to the gun. So you can see the one on the starboard side rack here is sliding across that little carriage, and then it's passing through the bulkhead out to the opposite side onto the main deck.
Yeah, cool. So we're talking, again, just going to go back. Maybe we could see it here. So you said it was the Y mount. So that's the most aft, right? Did you say X, Y?
Yeah, it's the most aft gun. So if you're looking at that top photo there, just to the left of the flag that you can see at the rear of the ship, there's a gun that sits there. They remove that gun and they extend the superstructure on that level out to occupy the space that the gun was in. And that becomes the Squid handling room where those bombs come up into.
Nice. So they come up on this pulley elevator system. They go into the ready service rack here. Then as they get to the edge, you can see right here, one on the right side of the photograph. Then they go along this conveyor belt. And what do we got going on here?
So once they pass out through the bulkhead, you can see right in the middle here, there's a trolley on the right rack there. So those trolleys would slide right up against the bulkhead. The mortar would come out through the bulkhead. It would slide onto that rack, and then they would push the rack up towards the mortars here. There's 2 of the mortars on board. Each has 3 tubes on it. They have 2 positions. They're firing and they're loading position. So the one on the right here is in the firing position with the tubes vertical. And the one on the left is in the horizontal position, so it's in the loading position. So that trolley car would roll over. They would twist it to the side, and they would slide the bombs off of the cart into the mortar tube. And then the mortar tubes would be put up into the vertical position for firing. They were gyroscopically stabilized. Each one had a gyroscope on it, so that allowed the tubes to stay vertical even as the ship pitched and yawed. As it rocked side to side, it would keep the tubes in the correct firing position. And you'll see as well that these the tubes are slightly askew, so they're not perfectly in line with each other. The idea was that when you fired them, they would travel about 300 yards, give or take, in front of the ship, which meant that you could use your sonar to track a target. That information would then be given to the helmsman on board so they could follow that sonar designation to make sure that the ship was pointed directly at the target, so that the tubes were pointed directly at the target. Then when they fired the mortars, they'd fire all 6 at one time. The first batch would go out set to about 25 feet below the target. The second batch would go out about 25 feet above the target, and they would detonate at the same time. And because the tubes were offset like this, when they reached their maximum range, they would spread out with about 40 yards in between each point. So they sort of drop in the water in a triangular-ish pattern, and that made the blast area more spread out. And with some of them below the target, some of them above, they would create a nice pressure bubble that would sort of, in an ideal situation, would crush the hull of whatever they were targeting, as opposed to needing direct contact. They just needed to get close enough that they could create a sort of a crunch. And then that would hopefully pull the hull apart and force it to surface, if not destroy it on its own. And if it came up to the surface, then the guns would take over and do the rest of the job.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the system, as if everyone can tell, or at least those that were there, like Danielle and Jared and Sean and everyone that was there, and Stephen. So what is the top of the mast? Do you know, just like 120 feet above the water line, something like that? Or
I'm not sure what it is, but it's up there.
But you're going above the mast, yep, over the ship, 300 yards in front of the ship. And that is kind of the head throwing, kind of lines it up a little bit more with the sonar room, because usually the sonar was at the forward end of the ship. But then if you're having traditional depth charges, you're dropping them off the back, and that 280 feet distance, for Fletcher, like 370, say, difference, can cause issues, right? You're dropping them where the sonar that's reading it from the forward end of the ship tells you in the back of the ship. And I'm not explaining that probably the best, but this kind of aligns it more with the sonar, where the sonar is a little bit.
And they weren't always, the system wasn't always mounted at the stern like it is on board the Tribal class destroyers. On many of the larger British ships, they would be mounted towards the front of the ship, if not in front of the sonar room, so that they didn't have to shoot over things, and it gave them even more range for reaching targets. But for practical purposes on board, placing them at the rear of the Tribal has made more sense than removing a forward gun to get them up at the front.
Right. All right. We have a comment, I guess. Does anyone know the show? I don't know that show offhand, but
I'm not familiar with that one though.
Okay, because he says they were also mounted on the stern. So I guess I'm gonna have to look up that show now. I do like 1970s shows, so I'll look it up and see if I can find anything, or we all can find things about it.
Yeah. And of course, the limbo system there was the system that followed the squids.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. Also, this from Lego History Sam, the gentleman I was just talking about from Iowa. Can you explain this a little bit more? Because in America, destroyer to destroyer escort means quite a lot of changes. Is it the same in the Royal Canadian Navy, or?
I'm not sure what its exact meaning would be now, or why exactly they decided to go with calling them destroyer escorts. But from my understanding, there were two sort of different configurations that the Royal Canadian Navy put the tribals through when they went for the refits. One, they would be set up for more of a more like heavy duty escort role. And the other was one where they got more anti-submarine weapons. They called all of them destroyer escorts. There were just sort of two different configurations that they got. Haida, of course, ended up with the anti-submarine one, which I believe was just in line with the Royal Canadian Navy's desire to show that it was better, it could and was well equipped to take out submarine threats, not only defending its own navy, but there was a real desire at the time to show to NATO that we were a prominent member and that we could protect our own navy, but that we could also protect our allied navies that we were working with them. So they invested heavily in different weapon systems to go on board the ships, giving them the capacity to operate as individual ships as opposed to needing multiple ships to work with them. So
yeah. Cool. Thank you for that.
More of a multi-purpose ship is sort of what they did. The tribals were very good at sort of middle of the road, fast and heavy guns during the Second World War. And then towards the Korean War, it was looking more at, could they fill other roles? Could we do aircraft? Could we do surface? Could we do fast? Could we also get submarines now? Could we kind of do everything in one sort of package?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And thanks for sharing those images too. If anyone has any specific questions as we continue on here, please let us know, and I can bring up the photos again and we can kind of dissect them. Again, talking with Danielle and Jared from the HMCS Haida, located in Hamilton, Ontario, about an hour and say 15 minutes away from Buffalo. If you're Canadian, welcome to welcome, and if you're American, hope you can go and visit at some point. Just bring your passport, right? Appreciate it. Okay, so we can get back to some more questions that we were just bouncing around, kind of. For the video that we released a few weeks ago, if you haven't watched it, it is on our YouTube channel. Thank you. And it was sanctioned by Haida and with Stephen. Do you want to talk a little bit about your process that you've worked with Sean on a little bit to kind of put together the video and things?
Yeah. So it was definitely editing is always a process. It's very tedious sometimes. And this one I had to translate into a language I don't speak. So that was always fun. Of course, Sean provided the verbiage, but it seemed like the time code was a little off, so I was kind of winging it. But I guess it looked okay. I haven't heard any bad responses. I'll defer to you guys. Was it all right?
Yeah, from what I can tell, it was fine. I mean, even if it's doesn't quite match up, the information is out there. That's the most important thing, right? So there might have been time where it didn't line up perfectly, but at the end, the information is there.
Right.
But it was great. I mean, you guys had sent over pretty much already edited footage, which was really nice for me. And then I was able to put in the footage that we had filmed. And I kind of just went back and forth. I would start with Haida and then kind of do the Sullivan's counterpart to it. And we kind of just went in that order. It was great. I mean, just editing, I learned so much, right? So just from sitting there and watching all the footage. So I guess that's one of the benefits of being able to edit it is you really get to dive deep into it.
Yeah.
But it was a great process. Sean's awesome. He is probably the easiest person I've ever had to work with.
Yeah, he's a pretty easygoing dude.
So yeah, it was a great process. It was yeah, like I said, editing can get very tedious sometimes, but this was a great project to work on. So I was glad I was able to do my role in that part.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's
I'm better behind the camera than in front of it.
as evidenced by this live stream right now.
Yeah, I know. I need a haircut, which is why
I'm
I was
kidding,
wearing a
I'm
hat.
kidding.
And I was like, I shouldn't wear a hat. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. So I think you guys are interested in, we would like to do more videos with you guys. Is that right?
Yeah, that would be great. Sorry, I got something in my eye. It's bugging me right now. Yeah, that's the hope, is that as we were talking and brainstorming about this initial video, was, what else can we do? Because there's so much, right, that we could do together. So we're exploring and talking about, future projects together and making videos and continuing this collaboration.
Yeah,
Together.
any
It's been
excuse for us
wonderful.
to go back up there. I would love to go during one of the live firings, so that would be pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, why don't you talk about that? That's right, please.
Yeah, it's been an exciting year, a very different year. So the goal was really to bring the sights and the sounds back to the ship and really bring it back to life, right? To make it really an immersive experience for visitors that come to visit HMCS Haida. So with our daily programming, currently we have a historical weapon demonstration using Lee Enfield rifles. So we usually shoot 5 rounds out of Lee Enfield rifles. So that happens twice a day, of course, weather pending, but that is at 11 a.m. and again at 3 p.m. And also every day at noon when we're open, again, weather pending, we do shoot the 4-inch guns in the A mount at noon. And for some of our special events that are happening throughout the season, we still do shoot our A mount 4-inch guns, but we might shoot it more than once. We might shoot it twice, maybe 3 times. And then typically for our new day gun, we just load it with a 10 gauge blank. So it's still a pop, it's still a bang, but for our special events coming up, then we'll load it up with black powder charges and definitely get a significant louder boom out of that. So it is quite an experience for visitors. The other thing that we add is we have the ship's siren. So we were doing that last year. So we do sound the ship's siren. The big horn sounds like a air raid siren that goes off at 1 p.m. every day. So definitely lots of immersive ways to experience the site. And our next event coming up is actually this weekend. So this weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, we have our Women of War event happening on site. So really, we're focusing on women's contribution to the war effort. So we explore from 3 different fronts. We look at women in industry. They were the ones manufacturing all these weapons that we see on board the ship, or a good significant amount of the weapons on board. And then we talk about women actually in service, specifically with the Wrens. And then we talk about just women at the home front. How were they supporting the war effort? So it's a popular event, and we're hoping to continue growing this in the future. So if people want to come down and see a big show, we'll definitely be shooting the big gun for the 4-inch guns twice that this weekend. So it'll be at noon, which is our typical time, but again at 2 p.m. And those will be with big black powder packets. So definitely a significant boom, more than our noonday gun.
Very cool. I'm interested in that too, because just the women's roles in the United States Navy and the United States Army is, it's a great story, a great history, and where they were, and combat roles and non-combat roles. And they were in, with the Women's Army Corps until basically the late 70s, where they weren't, they were part of the Army, but they weren't part with the men. And that's probably a whole deep dive that could be done just on that alone.
Yeah, so much you can do with it. So, a common question we get from visitors is asking if females ever served on board the ship. And the answer is no. There was no females that served on the ship. But that being said, they were still a vital they still contributed to the war and were very vital
Absolutely.
to the success. So it's like telling those stories that even though they're not physically on board the ship, this is what they were doing. And how they contributed. And we're looking at expanding in future as well. So right now, obviously our main focus is Navy specifically, but we're hoping to grow this event so that it's not just Navy focused, but we're talking about the Army, we're talking about Air Force, we're expanding it and not limiting it only to specifically World War II or Korean War, but looking at, throughout the course of history. But still lots of wonderful things for people to come out and check out and do. Our staff get really excited about it. We do have quite a lot of female students that work for us this season, and they all get dressed up in period kit based on what they're interpreting. So they get really excited. It gives them a chance to kind of dress up in something different than just our typical, green uniform like we're wearing. So it'll be fun. It's going to be great.
Great. So you use the term Ren. What is that? When you were explaining like the women's roles, you said Ren. Did I hear that right?
Yeah. So it's let me think. The acronym.
The Women's Royal Canadian Naval Service is what it was called in Canada. The acronym was slightly different in the UK, obviously, and the nickname that they had from the UK was the Wrens, is what they called them, and that was used in Canada as well. But the actual branch was the Women's Royal Canadian Naval Service. Okay,
so the E is for English, right? Okay, yeah. So, but that makes sense. They use the same term. Very cool.
Yeah.
What is the weekend? What is the weekend this year that Getty Lee and Alex Lifeson will be visiting the ship? Don't they make a annual trek to the Haida every year? Oh my God, was this joke so bad that no one got it? Oh man, I'm so
Not everybody's a Rush fan, okay? Not everybody's into Rush like you are, Shane.
Oh, I thought I'd knock it out of the park, I tell you.
I'm like, am I supposed to know who this is?
And I had to be so serious about it. Oh, very okay. Yeah, so if Getty Lee and Alex Lifeson are watching, yes, please visit the Haida and let us know, and we'll come up and enjoy your company.
The other thing I should mention as well, it's been an exciting year. We've really been working on a lot of our programming. Jared really did help to develop a lot of these programs that we're talking about. So we also have a behind the scenes tour that people can sign up for. So those are usually in the evenings. They don't happen during the day. You do have to purchase tickets ahead of time. We do have some tickets available for September where visitors get to access spaces that are normally closed off to the public. So it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the group and questions and interactions. But the other thing, and we are completely sold out because it's been very popular, was what we call our artillery experience, where visitors can purchase tickets ahead of time and actually get a chance to shoot the 4-inch guns. So it's been exciting. It's been great. Jared got a chance to lead some of those, and it's been popular to the point, we're sold out, and people are asking if we're going to get more sessions put into, for people to book more sessions. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to fit any more this season, but definitely something that we're going to continue moving forward into next season is kind of the what I call the VIP program, right? A VIP experience with shooting the big 4-inch guns.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's where we're lacking at the Naval Park, is we don't have any of our weapons that fire. But, over the next couple of years, we're looking at to change that and stuff. And maybe that's a benefit of being an industrial area like you. We're kind of in a residential area a little bit. So there might be different rules and regs. Is this the website that people should visit if they want more information?
It looks like it. It looks like it. Yeah, from what I can tell.
Yeah,
you can go and directly buy tickets online when you go into our what's happening event section. That will lead you into some of the events happening for the season. There's a few other things happening. One of the things that's unique that we've been doing for a few years is our language days. So we work with a third party. We work with some volunteers through one of our local colleges. And then depending on what type of language they speak, that will determine the type of languages we're able to offer. But visitors can then come and experience HMCS Haida and get a tour of the ship, but in their their native language. So this past Saturday, for example, we had a Spanish Day, we have Ukrainian Day, as well as Arabic Day coming up. So it's been a unique program that we've been doing now for quite a few years, and just trying to reach out to the community and get, different people coming to visit our site, having it accessible for everybody and anyone who wants to come and visit Haida.
Stephen, we got to make a note of that, right? That we should do that, and we can partner with a university or something, to get the natives speaking population to give us. That would be fabulous. That's such a great.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a couple of comments in the video, just as maybe a last question about the HMS Belfast. Can you guys talk is there any similarities? What's going on with those? In London and the Thames River is the HMS Belfast. Do you guys have any comparisons with between your two vessels or anything?
Yeah, so I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I actually I was at HMS Belfast last summer. I had the pleasure of visiting. There are definitely a lot of similarities between our sites, both being British designed ships. A lot of the spaces, if not all of the spaces that you'll find on board HMCS Haida, you will also find on board HMS Belfast, as well as many, many others that aren't. Of course, they're a town class light cruiser, so about twice the length of our ship, and I think almost double or triple the width. So a much larger vessel with much larger guns. Our main armament, as we've mentioned, there are 4-inch high angle, low angle anti-aircraft guns. They had in their original setup 6 mounts of those in twin configurations as an auxiliary weapon on board their ship. So a much bigger ship going on, but they have a lot of the same spaces on board. We have a shipwright shop for maintenance on the ship. It's a tiny little room that you can maybe get 8 people inside of. They have a massive sprawling shipwright shop on board that you can get huge pieces of lumber in for working, and it has multiple counters and cabinets. So everything that we have, they have scaled up so many times. We had a crew of about 240 to 245 people, give or take what period of history for HMCS Haida. HMS Belfast was approaching 2,000 for their crew on board. So a much larger ship that served a much different purpose, but they served at very similar times, commissioned not that far apart. Belfast is older by, I think, 3 or 4 years, but was out of commission briefly for the first couple of years, and sort of re-entered the war right around the same time as Haida did. They served doing a lot of the same things. First thing that HMCS Haida did was the Arctic convoys up into the port of Murmansk, and that was one of the first things that HMS Belfast did. They served in many of the same theaters. So there are lots of similarities between them, and then lots and lots of differences.
Yeah, makes sense. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's really great. So one last thing before we begin wrapping up here. It's the HMCS Symposium this year with the National Maritime Historical Society in Buffalo at the Buffalo Naval Park. Are you guys planning on joining us this year, hopefully?
That is the plan. Yeah. So there are plans forward in motion, I should say, to send a few of us from HMCS Haida up towards Buffalo, or I guess I should say down towards Buffalo, for the HMCS conference, which is quite exciting. I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to connect with other sites and other museum ships and seeing, what they're all about, and learning a lot from, the other ships and their successes, their challenges, and so on. Just
don't forget who the first person was that took you to the dance. Okay. All right. Right. No, that's awesome. We look forward to it. Yeah, it's such a community. It's such a way of meeting other vessels. Usually Sackville is there, at every HMCS. So if you don't get to interact that much, you're probably 2,000 miles away or 1,000 miles away or something like that. So, that's we're looking forward to having you as well in September. The HMCS Symposium, partnering with the National Maritime Historical Society, is in Buffalo, September 24 through 27, 24, 25, 26. Yep. 24 to 27. Stephen, do you have any last thoughts or questions?
I don't. This has been a great relationship, and I'm glad it's happened, and looking forward to the next collaboration that we do. Looking forward to hanging out with you guys in Buffalo for a couple of days in September.
Yeah, awesome. For the viewers, do you guys have any last comments? We do have the waves and the wrens were quite similar, right? Which makes sense. The women accepted for volunteer emergency service was the Women's Corps of the Navy. Rush apparently is also, or CC is also a Rush fan. So thank you, CC, for your support. Anyone else have any last comments before we wrap it up and say goodnight? Do you guys want to share your social media pages if you have those? Do you want to share them verbally, or we can type them here if you want, you can type them in the comment. Maybe you don't have the comments thing, but yeah, do you want to share your socials? If you have them?
As of right now, obviously you shared our website, which is great. So that's attached there. So that is a great point, a great starting point. Otherwise, we have a Facebook page. And a lot of our events and, things are posted there, as well as just fun tidbits and history and fun facts get posted there. The other thing that's really important that's part of our Facebook page is, especially if anyone's planning to come and visit HMCS Haida, is we will on occasion close down due to extreme heat. So the first thing that will get updated is our Facebook page if we do end up having to close down just due to extreme heat. So I would always just check that if you have Facebook. If not, definitely take a look at our website. You can always call the site before you come on down, especially if it's going to be a pretty hot day, just to make sure we're open. We don't want you traveling far away, and then unfortunately we're closed down.
So how does someone search? They put HMCS Haida in Facebook, or is it Friends of HMCS Haida or something?
So I believe there is a Friends of HMCS Haida Facebook group as well, but there is a Parks Canada HMCS Haida Facebook group. So if you go on, an English one as well as a French one. So if you just do a quick Facebook search, you should be able to find that and have that come on up.
Yeah, I believe it's
kind of something like that.
.com/Haida NHS.
Excellent. Thank you. So I'm writing that. You guys got that. Yeah, but that's this has been such an enjoyable partnership. Look forward, as Stephen was mentioning, to do another collaborative video. As you guys mentioned, Danielle and Jared, there's plenty of spaces that we can talk about that we haven't covered. When we got the tour, your officer's ward room is really great. We can do a comparison between our ward room and, on board the vessels. So there's a lot of opportunities here. And if there's no last questions from the subscribers, we'll wrap it up. And Danielle, Jared, thank you so very much. So glad that we've put together this video over the course of about a year or so of communicating, and look forward to, doing this again a second time.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. It's been nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you all to our subscribers and viewers. Appreciate your support. Of course, Buffalo Naval Park. And we'll see you again soon.